Level 1, Alice in Wonderland Syndrome. You're lying in bed. Normal night, normal room. Then your hand looks huge, massive, like it belongs to someone else's body. You blink. It's back to normal size. 10 minutes later, the wall on the other side of your room feels a mile away. Then it feels like it's pressing against your face. Nothing in the room moved, only your brain did. This is the entry point, the smallest crack in reality. And once you felt your own bedroom lie to you, you never trust a quiet room the same way again. Level 2, Capgras Syndrome. Now the lie gets personal. Your mother walks into the kitchen, same face, same voice, same annoying way she stirs her coffee. But something behind her eyes is wrong. You know with total certainty that this woman is not your mother. She's a copy, a replacement. Good enough to fool everyone else in the house. You don't scream. You don't run. You just watch her. Carefully, waiting for the mask to slip. Here's the part that should terrify you. To her, nothing has changed. To you, the person who raised you just got replaced overnight, and no one else can see it. Level 3, Capgras Syndrome. Now the replacements multiply. The mailman, your barista, the stranger on the train. Same person. All of them, wearing different faces like costumes. You start noticing him everywhere, following you, watching you, changing outfits between sightings so you won't catch on. Funny thing, at a party this would just look like you're terrible with names. In your head, it's a full-scale operation and you're the only one who's figured it out. Level 4, Alien Hand Syndrome. Now the threat stops being outside you. It's your own hand. You reach for your coffee cup. Your hand knocks it off the table instead. You try to button your shirt. Your other hand undoes it behind you. This isn't clumsiness. Your hand is acting on its own, doing things you never told it to do, like it's taking orders from someone else living inside your skull. You start sitting on it during dinner, just to keep it from doing something you'll have to apologize for. At night, you tuck it under the pillow. Not for comfort, for containment. Level 5, Anton Syndrome. By now, the stakes are climbing, and here's where power gets involved. The power of total, unshakable belief. You are completely blind. Doctors confirm it, scans confirm it. You insist you can see perfectly fine. You walk into a door frame and blame the movers for putting furniture in a stupid spot. You describe a room you cannot possibly be seeing, filling in details from memory, confidence, guesswork. Your brain refuses to accept the diagnosis, so it invents a version of reality where you were never blind at all. The doctor holds up 3 fingers. You confidently say 2. You're wrong every time, and every time you have a reason ready. Bad lighting, dirty glasses, a bad angle. That confidence will cost you a broken nose and a hospital bill by the end of the week. Level 6, anosognosia. The denial gets bigger. Half your body is paralyzed. Doctors show you the scan, family points at your arm, lying motionless at your side. You insist you moved it 5 minutes ago. You genuinely believe you can stand up and walk to the bathroom unassisted. The nurse has to physically stop you before you hit the floor. This is the disorder where the brain doesn't just deny reality, it denies its own denial. You're not lying. You actually believe it, and that's what makes it dangerous. Level 7, reduplicative paramnesia. Now even the walls turn on you. You wake up in your own bedroom, same bed, same photos on the wall. You insist this is a fake copy of your house, built somewhere else, down to the last detail, just to fool you. Your real house, you're convinced, is somewhere nearby. Maybe next door. Maybe down the street. You try to leave twice in 1 week to go home. Both times you end up standing in a stranger's driveway, confused about why your real house isn't there. Family stops correcting you after a while. It's easier to just play along than watch you try to walk to a house that was never there. Level 8, clinical lycanthropy and boanthropy. Here's where it stops being just delusion and starts becoming physical performance. You believe you're turning into an animal. For some, a wolf dropping to all fours, growling at strangers on the street, convinced you can feel fur pushing through skin that never changes. For others, something stranger. A recorded case history describes a man convinced he was a cow, spending hours on his hands and knees in a field, grazing on grass his body couldn't even digest. Imagine explaining that one to your boss as the reason you missed a shift. The body doesn't change. Not one cell of it. The mind is completely convinced that it has. And that conviction is strong enough to override hunger, pain, and every ounce of common sense. Final level, Cotard's Syndrome. This is the one nobody walks away from unshaken. You look in the mirror, you feel nothing. No pulse of recognition, no sense that the person staring back is alive at all. Because you don't believe you are. You are certain beyond any argument, beyond any doctor, beyond any grieving family member standing in front of you, that you are dead. Not sick, not dying. Already gone. Some patients stop eating entirely. Why feed a body that's already a corpse? Some ask their families calmly to start planning the funeral. Not out of sadness, out of practicality. In their mind, the paperwork is simply overdue. This is Cotard's Syndrome, often called walking corpse syndrome, and it's one of the rarest, most extreme breaks from reality the human brain is capable of producing. And here's the final twist. Every level you just walked through, the giant hands, the imposters, the alien limb, the fake house, the wolf on all fours, the body already dead and walking, every single one felt completely, unshakably real to the person living it. Not a performance. Not a lie. A brain malfunctioning in total confidence. Convinced it had finally found the truth. The scariest part was never the hallucination. It was how certain they were that it wasn't one.